to our favorites. And we have you okay over there?
Punched my stand. I came back and I whacked. Oh, I pushed right on the...
We have a very, very special episode for you today. First off, we got a special guest in the room. Everybody meet Drew, one of Jake's old college roommates.
Hi, Drew.
Hello, hello.
Hello. And you know what? Let's just throw this right over. Jake, this is one of your favorites, so we are going to let you kick this one off.
All right. So first, I want to introduce Drew. Welcome, Drew. He's my roommate from college. He's responsible for several of my favorite movies of all time. And
many of your least favorite.
Two ends of
we're going to look at Blue Velvet for that one. But anyway, so this is going to be kind of a weird episode. We just got out of Dickey's top 10. Thank you, goodness.
Santa Maria.
Oh, my God.
It fits in.
It does.
We're not talking about the third movie yet.
It's all movies.
It's all the same one.
Well, we can't say what they are yet. You got to tell it.
Anyway, the movie we're talking about today is The Godfather. The movies we're talking about today are the Godfather Trilogy. Okay, so yes, we know everybody's talked them to death, yada yada yada. The cut that we are watching is called, what is it, 1901 to 1800?
1980.
Like, it moves backwards?
It is The Godfather Trilogy, 1901 to 1980.
So-
1800, The Curious Case of Vito Corleone.
I would watch that.
I would watch it too.
You see, they
Brando
had to go
walking
55
backwards.
miles an hour.
Anyway, for a long time, this cut of the movie, this specific cut of the movie was in my top 10. When we were organizing our top 10, this podcast, this show, we were talking about it, and we couldn't watch this because it's only ever been released on that Laserdisc and what'd you say, a limited print VHS tape?
Both were limited.
Hold it up. Jared, zoom in. You're editing this, Jared. Zoom in.
Look at
This
check
thing
out
is
our
massive.
YouTube.
Here's my head.
Check out the YouTube
So-
channel for this beautiful.
Round about 1992, this was a version of the film released on limited runs, like individually numbered limited runs on Laserdisc and VHS. Never any other format. And to the best of my knowledge, never syndicated on television or in any other method.
So this is the only way that I have ever seen The Godfather. I have never seen
insane to
the
me.
movies separate. I have no context
How?
for what they are.
Literally how?
Have you watched this?
Yeah,
apart
but-
from that. So let me tell you a story about why this is. And again, it's one of those things where it's in my top 10, not because of the movie it is, but because of my memory that is attached to it. So, I don't even remember what we were doing. You just all of a sudden, it must have been around the time you got it, where you're like, you should come over and watch the.
No, I can set up the context for this. I had already owned it numerous years at this point. As a little bit of background, because one of the only ways to watch this was on Laserdisc, this was one of the reasons I hunted down and bought a Laserdisc player way back in the day. This is one of several specific movies I had in my mind that was only available on Laserdisc. So I had this, and I brought it with me to college, along with a handful of other things in my collection. This is one of the years that I was...
We were in GVA, or you were in GVA.
You weren't living with me. I was living with several other of my former roommates, good friends to this day. And it was near the end of the school year, and we were getting ready to move out. And my roommates weren't the best at cleaning up the apartment, and so a lot of this fell on me. And Jake was kind enough to come over and keep me company, and we decided, as I'm sitting there spackling the drywall, praying we can get our security deposit back.
Sprackling is a great word, Drew. Thank you.
We thought, let's throw something on. Well, this looks like we've got a lot of work ahead of us. You know what'll fill a lot of time?
9 hours and 40, how long?
40 some odd,
47.
47. So it seemed like a natural choice.
So, to take that another step. Like you said, 9 hours and 47 minutes. We get through the first two, and it's what
I think. Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but before saying we get through the first two, I think we need to explain more
What
of
this
what
is.
it is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's correct. So, what this is, let me back up take another step back. Welcome to my 11th, what we are dubbing my 11th favorite movie of all time. Again, just because we didn't have a way to watch it until I talked to Drew, and he said, "Oh, I got a digital copy of it too. I transferred it." Oh, well, then you want to come and talk about it? Yeah, sure. So we have all engaged in this nearly 10-hour epic over the course of the last week.
Literally, it took
Give
a
or
whole
take.
week.
You probably started a little bit earlier because I told. So, do you want to talk about what it is, or do you want me to say what it is?
I can give my best explanation, and you can fill in the blanks if you see any.
Okay.
So, this version of the movie takes all... Because it came out in 92, the trilogy was complete at this point. It takes all three of the Godfather movies, and it recuts them into a format that is largely, but not exclusively, in chronological order. Now, you might say, I don't have a Laserdisc player, but that sure sounds familiar. What you may be remembering is they did a similar thing in the late 70s.
77, I got pulled up right here.
77, thank you. That was called The Godfather Saga, the novel for television. And that was just Godfather 1 and 2 recut to be largely chronological and to more closely match the flow of the book. This takes that general premise and it expands on it a little more. What was unique about the Godfather Saga, the TV miniseries version, was that it added, in addition to being recut in chronological order, it added in quite a number of scenes that were not in the theatrical cut of the films. This Laserdisc cut retains almost all of those scenes from the Saga version and adds in yet more scenes that don't appear in the DVD, the Blu-ray, any of the theatrical cuts. As far as I know, they're unique to this set. And again, I said it's largely recut in chronological order. There's a handful of things that aren't, but I'm sure we'll get there. Jake, does that pretty well sum it up?
It pretty well sums it up. Yeah, I think so. Again, it's the only way I've been exposed to The Godfather, other than in name. I've since read the book. It does perfectly match the book.
I forgot there was a book. So could you really quickly explain the Godfather movies? Is it all three parts from the same book?
No,
Two
I
forgot. I knew there was a
part
book.
3 was written well after the book came out. Well after that came out.
So,
Okay.
1 and 2 were pretty directly based on the book. It's been ages since I read the book. I seem to remember the book went on a little bit further than 2 the movie did, but it was pretty dang close. 3 is well outside the realm of the book, but the screenplay for 3 was co-written by the original author, Mario Puzo.
Okay.
That lends it some credibility.
So, to get back to the story and why I'm so attached to this, we're sitting there watching, and what would you say the third one starts at? Hour 7, hour 6.5, maybe.
It's pretty well up there. Yeah.
So we get to the
Yeah.
end of the second one, and it's got to be like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning at this time.
You kept going?
Well, so hold on. We stopped and I said, "I'm hungry." We hadn't eaten. I don't think we ate.
Oh, no. We were just living off of caffeine at that point.
Checks out.
So we stop and we're like, we need to get food. So we go to Slevin because that was our thing. 7-Eleven. If you are unfamiliar with that shortening of that word.
I've never heard a single soul alive call it Slevin.
That's a lucky number.
Very good, very good.
Well played.
Cut straight to the heart. No, sorry.
Anyway,
But,
so we go to 7-Eleven and we get to. At the time, the only 7-Eleven around was the one on Alpine, right? The one in Granville had closed
Sounds right.
at that point.
oh, from Grand Valley, that's a little bit of a hike.
Alpine, yeah, I guess,
I
but
don't even think that's a Slevin anymore.
it's not.
There's no more. I can't call it that.
Isn't
There's
there?
no more 7-Elevens on this side of the state.
You know you want to call it Slevin.
I feel so wrong.
You
Doing
know
that.
you want to call it Slevin.
But you want to know the best plot twist in 7-Eleven history? They bought out all of the Slurpee machines in Speedways. So if you go to a Speedway and you want a 7-Eleven Slurpee, you can.
Interesting.
I had
Yeah.
not heard that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry.
we go to 7-Eleven, we get a Slurpee. I believe, if memory serves, and this is completely superfluous,
Any
I
food?
believe I got a banana and
Good.
a Coke Slurpee
Could
because
eat something.
because that is what I really liked.
But knowing full well we still had the bulk of Godfather Part 3 ahead of us, you got to do it right. You get a Slurpee, and if you can find it, you get Balls Energy Drink, spelled BAWLS.
Were we ever
And
able to find that on this side of the state?
out here, I can't recall. If that's available, that's the optimum choice. You pour that right into the Slurpee.
Oh, God.
In a pinch, you can't get your hands on it.
Can't get your hands on balls.
You're living life pretty dangerously, but you get yourself a can of Rip It, and right into the Slurpee it
Oh,
goes.
Ride
Rip
the
It,
snake.
man.
You gotta ride the
That
snake.
used to hurt. Oh, I remember Rip It.
Anyway, we were doing that. I don't remember if we got balls or whatever we got. I decided on the way back that I wanted chicken nuggets.
As one does.
We go into the, it's like 3:30, 3:45 at this point in time.
What better time to go to McDonald's, right?
And we go up and we go up to the order and we're like, I would like some chicken nuggets, please. Bro, we're serving breakfast now. Can you at least please make some chicken nuggets for me? Please? No. What the?
Oh my God.
So I am now forced to go back and sit through Godfather 3.
Without your chicken nuggets.
I know.
Vitally, we had one other delay. Minutes, just mere blocks after pulling out of the McDonald's. Again, I have to reiterate, this was the end of the school year. We're all packing up to leave for home. Jake's car is full to the brim of clothing and boxes and nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
A block and a
that the
half,
green one?
it was the green one.
I think it's tiny.
Block and a half, 2 blocks down the street, police car pulls up behind us and
That's
the sirens
right!
go on. So
Oh,
now,
I forgot about that.
Pulled over.
now you know. Best case scenario, this is another half hour of our time totally shot.
You wanted your balls.
That actually is another side story. Me and some friends from high school got pulled over. We were coming back from doing a Slevin run.
Did you get balls?
We did. This is
It's because the bottle. Go ahead.
yeah. I'm an East Side boy myself, so this is from the Slevin on Jefferson, right by the Ford House.
Oh, I know that
Gotta
one.
love it.
I know that one.
And so we've got numerous cans of balls. And if you've not seen it, it is a blue bottle. It's like made out of really cool blue glass. People do crafts with it. You can make chandeliers and
That's
what
for Sam
have
as
you.
yours.
And
Blue, it's appropriate.
Sorry, true.
so same thing there. We get like a block away from my house, and here comes a cop behind us pulling us over. Like, we're just a bunch of high school kids out in the middle of the night, probably up to no good. I can hardly
Most likely.
blame him.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, who bought you guys the vodka? Well, what are you talking about? Well, I see you guys got some bottles of Sky back there. I mean, you know what? Fair enough. It does look a whole lot like a bottle of
so
Sky.
funny.
This is neither here nor there. So, back to the story with Jake. The cop pulls us over. There had been a series of robberies in the area, and here's Jake with a car loaded to the brim with boxes of computer stuff and DVDs and what have you. And so, eventually he sends us on our way, determining that we're just a bunch of broke college kids and not criminals. But all this to say, by the time we get back to the apartment and we start digging into the part of this version of the movie that essentially is where Godfather Part 3 starts, it is like 4:30, 5 in the morning. We are making the best life decisions.
Oh my!
So you weren't a vegetarian
gosh.
at this point.
Yes, I was.
You're eating chicken nuggets.
Sorry. You're right. That was
You
before.
weren't yet.
That was before.
That was like a year before, wasn't it?
That was like 2008.
It was pretty close. Yeah, this was in the before times.
Okay.
Just to clarify, or octagonical or whatever type of vegetarian you were.
Ovo-lacto-vegetarian. Maybe.
Octagonical, my favorite Hogwarts teacher.
Stop.
So you finished this movie at like 7:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah, it was every bit of 8:30,
Finished is a
9
weird
o'clock.
word.
How did you even pay attention at that point?
Well, if there's one thing that's going to keep us awake after a full night of cleaning an apartment, when we're running on like no sleep for 28 hours, it's the riveting plot of the mergers and acquisitions of multinational businesses.
And the papal banking scandal that was going on at the time, right?
Most definitely.
It's like that, and the new pope was around that
remember the
time
whole
too,
Pope-
right?
And-
That was both.
and
There's the papal banking scandal, and like was it John Paul II was selected around that time?
So this, it's sort of getting ahead of ourselves, but I
Yeah.
feel like we're not really focusing on the blow by blow of the plot here. So I think it's okay. Yeah, when 3 starts off, it is Pope Paul VI, and he's sort of a background character in part 3 in the sense that Michael's working with Cardinal what's-his-name, starts with an F, can't remember.
Oh, no, it's like Freya or something.
Yeah, and he's sort of like trying to broker the deal for the Corleone family to purchase the controlling interest in International Immobiliare. And I don't know, the deal's sort of getting slowed down. It's not really going through. And then Pope Paul VI, whose approval the whole deal was contingent on, dies. And this is 1978. This is accurate to real history. Then Pope John Paul I gets appointed. Again, this happens in real life. And he starts looking into Vatican Bank finances, and, well,
It was Archbishop Gilday
Oh, okay.
There we
Thank
go.
you very much.
in the movie.
John Paul I starts looking into finances in the Vatican Bank, which historically has always been plagued by fiscal malfeasance, and as Michael says at some point in the movie, it's and I'm paraphrasing, but it's very tough to be a person with ethics in a position like that. He may or may not get poisoned in the climax of the movie. I mean,
That's right.
he's in his position under 2 months, I think, and suddenly dies. That's also true to real life. Whether or not he was poisoned as a result of looking into Vatican Bank finances,
And conspiracies a little bit.
inconclusive. I'm inclined to believe it, but so it goes. Anyway, side tangent.
Side tangent, you were talking about the movie.
Yeah, we did. I didn't mean to bring it up like that, but it was like, oh yeah, all this stuff actually
Anyway.
did.
We worked way back into it.
We talk about how difficult that was. I mean, if there's one thing you know about me when I'm watching movies, what happens when when it's late at night and I'm watching a movie?
I'm impressed you have not fallen asleep.
Shoving balls in his face.
You do fall asleep. The other thing I know about you is you talk in your sleep, but that's neither here nor there.
That is a side tangent.
That is a very different story for a very different time.
Wasn't one of the times I was ordering vinyls like pizza?
That was a thing too. I mean, I could tell the story.
Just tell the story. Just tell.
We got
Just
time.
go.
We
just
watched
go.
10 hours of this. We can talk for 5 seconds about this.
Okay, so
That's a great way to start. I'm sorry.
throughout our college career, I lived with Jake at several different points in time, including both semesters of freshman year. One thing I quickly came to learn about him is when he goes to sleep, not only is he just out cold, he also talks in his sleep. Like, a lot. Like, frequently. And I am and have always been a night owl, just generally, but then during college, I'm up studying, writing a paper, whatever. And I'm sitting there studying for some big test the next morning, and I hear Jake sort of muttering. And I pay it no mind. Continue through my workbook, and then he's still saying stuff, and I'm hearing a little bit more and more of it as he's like getting more and more agitated, and his volume's increasing, and I'm starting to make out Wayne. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't think Jake knows anyone named Wayne. Like, what's this about? Oh well, back to my work. And I'm working, and I hear, Wayne! Jake sits fully upright in bed, but he's still out cold. Wayne, you so crazy? You so crazy, Wayne? Like, all right, this is bizarre. I mean, I've not known Jake that long, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't know anyone named Wayne. Where is this coming from? I continue about my work, but he's not done yet. Getting more and more agitated. Wayne, you so crazy. You so crazy. Bruce Wayne, you're so crazy. You're so crazy.
So you might want to set your pop down. I mean, half of it got all
That
over
was
you.
okay.
You pulled
So
a Dickey.
Yeah.
Just spit all over yourself like you always
to
do.
be fair, that was when we were in Lakerville.
And he is crazy.
Because that was
Let's get nuts.
that was when I was playing Arkham Asylum for
That would do
like
it.
3 weeks straight.
Yeah, you 100%ed that game in well under a month.
You remember freshman year when I brought home Kingdom Hearts, and like, full disclosure about me, I went home way too much on my freshman year. That is a big mistake that I regret, but whatever.
I don't think, and I could be wrong, but to my recollection, you never stayed through any weekend.
There was one.
There was one.
When I brought home Kingdom Hearts.
Okay, fair enough.
I
fair
played
enough.
that game one weekend and I beat it.
So the next week he was like, Sora!
Sora, not Sora!
Why does Mickey have his shirt off?
Oh my god.
Or that one time we just, what was it? We had a Nintendo and we left Super Mario Bros. 3 on because it doesn't save, and we left it on for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, we could go on and on and on and on and on, and that's not related to The Godfather. But
Oh, yeah, The Godfather.
But who cares about The Godfather?
It's tangentially related.
Everybody talks about The Godfather. I mean, if you don't know The Godfather, then, you know, do you even watch movies?
Do you even watch movies, bro?
Yeah, I saw Zootopia, or Zootropolis, everywhere else in the world. With the shrew. And I've actually a really good Brando impression from that shrew. And everyone's made fun of his performance for the longest time, but it's
So easy.
so good.
Yeah, but
He's
it's so
got-
easy to make fun
Yeah,
of.
it's
so show.
well, he's the one that put the cotton balls like down in his cheeks to get that kind of sound.
And if I
come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding.
oh, that's
You talk about America. Well, you call me Godfather. It's the best I can do.
if I remember the plot of the book correctly, and again, I haven't read it since high school, so I'm really stretching the limits of my memory, but I think there is a backstory behind why he talks like with that sort of rasp. I think he was shot in the throat, and so it's the scar tissue that's...
That's interesting.
There's something in the De Niro stuff from 2 where when he came over on the boat, he was sick and had to be quarantined.
That's
I
right.
wonder if that affected his speech. They don't say that, but I wonder if that's what did it, because he doesn't really talk that much
Right.
before that. I
Boy.
wonder if being sick did something to his vocal cords. I don't remember what he had.
That's interesting.
Was it like, it wasn't like
No,
smallpox
yeah, it
or
was
something.
smallpox.
It was smallpox.
That was when he was in quarantine for.
So I
well, you want to
wonder how
talk
that
about a
affected him.
horrible American practice. Hey, here you come over from your home. You have no one around you. What's your name? Oh, you're from the town of Corleone. That's your name now.
Well, that's what they used to do. Legit, that's what.
That's why I say you want to talk about a horrible American practice.
Yeah,
Now-
that's ridiculous.
I mean, by and large, it was a terrible movie, but did any of you ever seen the, it was the late 90s, was it a Zucker Brothers film? It was,
Zucker
it was, it may not have been them, but it was very much in that theme. It was Jane Austen's Mafia.
I've
Oh
seen
my
it. It
God,
uses the
no.
same font, and I've not seen
that
it,
sounds
but I know what you're
hilarious.
talking. It's with the exclamation point.
Yes.
So it's mafia. Like
The whole thing was
Shane
basically a
Dawson's
spoof of the Godfather movies, and like there's the scene where he arrives at Ellis Island, and you know, like they're looking for the tag pinned to his lapel, and is like, your name is Vito Armani Windbreaker.
Another good one, a Godfather parody, is in Men in Tights when it's Dom DeLuise, and he's got like a toy lizard in his lap because he's the assassin, and he's talking like Brando, and right in the middle he says, "I could have been a contender." Oh, I lost it.
Before we get too far into the weeds on side stories and tangents, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention at least some of the footage that differentiates this version from the theatrical cut.
I'd like to know. I could not remember it well enough.
It's been ages since I've seen the theatrical releases, but going from memory, there's a scene immediately after the wedding in Godfather 1 where they're all whisked off by Vito to the hospital to visit with the dying old consigliere
That's
Jenko.
right. Yeah, my sons are here to pay their respects.
Are you just going to talk like that this entire
Yes.
podcast? Okay.
Until
Challenge
he's-
accepted.
Until
Go.
he's dead in the movies, then I'll just talk like that. Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
man.
Sure.
If you're gonna do that, hold my. The cap is orange, so here you go. You're gonna hold that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
There you
good
go.
good point.
And you know, I feel like I'm glad to have revisited the movie for this podcast, because I feel like I caught a lot of little things I didn't catch before. Like the prior consigliere was Jenko, and that was the name of the olive oil company.
That's
So,
right.
So I guess there was some sort of tie there. Which,
And that's how the Corleone family made their money primarily, right? That's like the
was-
main thing that got
It
him
was the
started.
front.
it was
Front,
all
thank
the
you.
front.
Yeah, I
'cause-
could not think of the word.
And that ties to more of the footage that was added into this version. Again, this is from my recollection, but I'm pretty confident the whole sequence in the Robert De Niro is Vito section, where they are trying to fence all of the stolen dresses. And Don Fanucci sort of jumps onto his little cart and
which was
is like
really
pulling
funny.
out his dresses and stuff. I think that's all unique to this version.
Yeah, I but for some reason I remember that, but I have not. I've seen Godfather 2 once in 2012, like Christmas time.
Okay, sure.
So it had been a while. But I for some reason, I was like, yeah, I remember the fat guy because he's the one where he shoots him through the towel.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly in it, but it's to a lesser degree. You've also got sort of a baffling part that they've added back in.
Yeah.
Well, there's a handful of things that are a little baffling about this version. One is they've added in a sequence where Don Fanucci, again in the Robert De Niro chronology, gets his throat sliced by some street hooligans.
That's right.
But then you see him a couple scenes later, and he's basically fine. I mean, even in the context of that scene, you know that they don't kill him because
He's gonna die later.
and the
And you don't even see it really. It's like really quick, and he's freaking out.
I think it was more of a flesh wound, because the guy Vito's working with in the shop says, "Oh, they're just doing it to scare him." Another scene they've added back in this that I'm pretty sure was unique to this version, and possibly also the Saga for Television version. And again, it's in the Robert De Niro part of the timeline. This part got fleshed out quite a bit overall in this version. It's when they go with young Clemenza to meet with the gunmaker.
Yeah, Coppola.
Yeah, it's the gunmaker Agostino Coppola, and you see his young his young son playing the flute, Carmine Coppola, who is in real life Francis Ford Coppola's father, who I think he scored the.
Yep, he and Nino Rota did the score together for the second one.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
And they won the Oscar, which is like that family because of Sophia's win for Lost in Translation for screenplay, and Francis Ford winning picture screenplay for a couple things. I think he wrote Patton as well. Is like one of the few like multi-generational Oscar-winning families. Of course, it's gonna be the Coppolas, but 3 generations winning Oscars.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess, like, the character of the little kid in this extra scene is loosely autobiographical of Carmine.
Yeah.
He's got childhood stories of growing up in the New York of the time with these types of people.
And like he said, like, people would come in and talk, and he's like, in hindsight, they probably were criminals asking him to make up, but his father was never a criminal. Just kind of accessory to, in a way.
And, not directly related to the movie itself, but certainly related to this Laserdisc set. It didn't really have special features to speak of. It did come with a booklet that gives you some background on the trilogy in general, and it's got, a reproduction of handwritten notes about, like, the original plot of Godfather 3, just little odds and ends.
Is there an Al Neary autograph? He's the MVP.
Right.
He doesn't miss his shots.
But you dig to the back of the set, it's got, this whole venture, this whole edit of the film encompasses 6 laser discs.
Oh my goodness.
So that's 12 sides. And then way in the back, it's got the Godfather family. This will add another hour 15 to your life. And this was sort of a documentary that sort of accomplishes 2 goals at once. One is it's sort of a making of Godfather 3. It was made, around the same time that movie was coming out. But then it's also interspersed with Coppola and a bunch of the people that worked with him on all 3 films. Just, sitting around the table at some Italian diner, sharing their life, their story of making the film, certainly, but also their life stories and how it relates to the characters in the film. It's,
Is it... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is it Lorenzo that they... is not an actor, is like an actual, like, part of a family?
That was, Luca Brasi was like their...
Luca Brasi.
He was like their on-set... What's the word I'm looking for? What is the word I'm looking for? Like, he's there to make sure it's accurate.
I know what you're talking about.
Consultant. He's the on-set consultant, and they liked him enough to put him in the movie as Luca Brasi, and him, when he's outside, like, trying to, like, prepare his speech to Vito, is him actually... I think they liked how he was trying it, so they put it in the movie. They filmed him doing it for the movie. It's not like they just turned the camera on, they set up a shot.
And for my money, that's just one of the funniest parts of the whole trilogy, is going over his lines,
He goes in there, and it's like, you can tell he's not super well spoken. The character's not super well spoken, and he's trying. And I like how Vito is just patient with him. They're old friends, and he gets through it. And he's like, it's like when you're talking to a kid, like that, as they say each syllable, and he gets through it, and you go, all right, dude.
Thank you for inviting me here to your daughter's wedding on the day of your daughter's wedding.
You want to talk about a character I wish was in it more, just because I like him so much as a character, but he's not. He's got a gruesome death. He gets garroted, and then also just the big line about the fish is one of the most iconic lines. But it's like, man, I wish he was in it more. But it's not like a negative thing. That's like one thing I'd want more of. But it ruined the movie to change anything, because that first movie is perfect.
Yeah. Really quick, I do want to mention, I haven't watched it, but you guys talking about how the making of it, the production of it. There's a new Paramount show out called The Offer, and it's about the filming and making.
Miles Teller, right?
I think so.
It is.
And I really want to watch it because this made me think of it. Obviously, it's making of The Godfather, so it'd be really interesting to see how that show and to see how accurate everything is from there.
You mentioning that reminds me of another scene that's in this version. Because I'm thinking of The Offer, and I think like a lot of the press photos, some of the promotional material is playing up like the filming of the whole bit with the horse head in the bed, famous.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of extra shots that are fairly quick added to this version with that director. Was it Schultz or?
Yeah, it's John Marley, isn't it? Jack Woltz.
Woltz.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more when you're first introduced to him, and he's throwing like the birthday party for like the Shirley Temple sort of stand-in, And then when you see that character later at the top of the steps, you know, clearly having been abused by him, like it fleshes out that relationship, you know, that he's totally a pedophile. So, you know,
So he got what
savory
was
stuff.
coming to him. That poor horse, though. I do feel bad for the horse.
One of the things I learned from that documentary included in this set is I guess that was like a real horse head they filmed it with.
What?
They just like went to, I don't know, like the racetracks they have in upstate New York, and there was some horse that they had to put down because it broke its leg on the track or something, and there you go.
But Francis Ford Coppola's never been in trouble for animal stuff. I've seen Apocalypse Now.
You know,
It's the bull. They're chopping up the bull, which
Yeah.
they just started filming the tribe doing a ritual thing where that's their dinner, and it's not fun to watch. But he got in like a lot of trouble. They had to like prove like this that we didn't do this for the movie. This is them doing their thing.
It makes me try to remember, and obviously I didn't see it at this one because the credits were weird. But I wonder if for the if they had like the little thing at the very end of the credits, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a thing yet. I don't know when that started.
It
Might have been Apocalypse Now for all I know.
I just thought it was
Someone
like, oh my God,
listening
that's
probably
hilarious.
knows, but
Yeah.
So, random question, and kind of a weird question actually, because I just thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But would you say that first one has a bit more genuine levity to it? Would you say that first one has a bit more genuine levity to it than the other two? Like, there's a kind of a humorous tone to the way characters interact with each other, and like the way it doesn't feel as serious as like 2 does.
I actually think the opposite.
I would say compared to 2, I agree with you. I think it doesn't feel as
Maybe it's just the way I have watched them.
Yeah,
Because
but
I feel
yeah.
because I feel like, well, now I kind of want to go and watch 2.
It's a theatrical.
It is because it, like, having heard you say, this is the way 2 works out.
Yeah, we'll probably get into that in a second. Probably got to get to it.
Ha ha.
Jake's number 2.
Jared, so crazy.
I was saying this time around, I watched the first Godfather for the second time because the first time was Christmas 2012. I watched all 3 of them in like the same week, like night after night. Which, by the way, watching movies like at the same time each night for like 3 consecutive nights is actually really fun. Like, because you can compare them, but you're not binging them in one sitting. So there's enough room to kind of like let one sit in a little bit. But I did that, and then I hadn't seen it until last year for the 50th anniversary. And when I rewatch it, it's like, this is so good. So where was I going with this? I forgot where I was going.
You
Okay.
sound like me over there.
When I rewatched it, it's like it's a movie that, at least for me personally, it grips you right away. It grips you right away, and it just doesn't let go. It has like this weird American fairy tale thing to it, not like a magical fairy tale. It's such a big piece of Americana that when you watch it, you're just like, this just feels like something that could happen, but is fictional, but based off real things. It's just that I don't know how to explain it.
It's interesting you say that because I remember because for me, I have only seen the second Godfather once, several years ago. I think it was for a school I was in college. That's why I had to watch it. But so watching it when it blended all of them together, I was picking up. I was like, okay. I was picking up on when it started. It was really good. God dang it, Jared! I just did the same thing you did. There was somewhere, and I was literally, I was gonna have a point. And the point just fell out of my head.
So for me,
This is ridiculous.
for me, I think when I say levity, I think that first movie does a fantastic job of making you feel sort of like a part of the family, and like there's a plot obviously, but you also, it's just kind of being a part of this scenario in a way that I didn't. Again, and it's different because of the cut we watched, and being the only cut I've ever seen. But it's a way that the second one just didn't make me feel like that.
Of course, you haven't seen how it's supposed to be.
I was going to say,
as you said.
Jake, because I'm not going to bash entirely on the 10-hour cut. However, it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like just a series of events that more like a compilation, if that makes sense. Where I think actually watching the actual theatrical cut, I've never seen the third theatrical cut. I've never seen the third movie, but the first and two, like it grips you and it feels. It's more like an actual like movie, like it feels like up and down, like more of like an actual plot to it. Where watching it like this, nothing grabbed me. If that makes sense.
I would agree that, like, just knowing how the second one plays out, you and I have talked several times about how this is not supposed to be something that's a better way to tell the story, just a different experiment.
Sure. It's not better or worse. It's just each cut of the film has a different goal in mind, and I would say each cut achieves that goal fairly successfully to one degree or another.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
The one thing that I would say about this is it feels like it tries to make it one story, and it does accomplish that, but I think that a lot of the tension is taken out of the second one in doing so.
That's fair. It's more of a slow burn. It's like more of a sweeping epic, like you're Gone with the Wind sort of thing.
Yeah, like, yeah. But I think that it would make more sense, like, I think the second one would make more sense to me it's hard to say the second one for me because it's all kind of one glob in my head. Like the juxtaposition, like I believe.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Jump in. So, on this point, when I first heard about this cut, I remember thinking like, how would that work? And then of course, Hammy, a friend who's been on here, we've said. Was like, that kind of ruins how the second movie functions. And I remember thinking like, okay, maybe that's a bit harsh without seeing it. And then watching it as it starts with the De Niro stuff, I'm thinking like, this doesn't feel paced well. And it's because we're not supposed to see this scene after scene. It's got a weird pace to it.
You're not wrong.
100%.
And so when you get to the Michael side and it's all in a row, there's less momentum in the pacing, because usually when they're side by side, when Michael gets too slow, because it is a slower, less exciting one compared. Because everyone says the Vito stuff is usually their favorite.
It is.
But the Michael stuff is so different from it that when you cut back and forth, it keeps it moving. But the Michael stuff feels a lot slower in this. And I remember at times I was like, I'm starting to... Like that first movie, I don't lose interest for a second. The second one is where I start to... But this kind of reinforced in this needs to be together to make it fully work.
And Jerry, like you said earlier, the second one when you watched it, it's gripping and it didn't like drop your attention. I thought the same thing. Like when I first saw the first movie and the second movie, they were both incredibly, even in older Hollywood standards, because the acting is. I mean, it's still really good, but it's just a little more wooden compared to what you see nowadays. And same with the cinematography and the way that it's shot. But it's regardless though, it still grabs your attention, and I think the way that they edit it together like this, it just, I'm not gonna lie, for watching this week, it was a slog. Like it was tough.
I think that because it originally functioned as two separate parts, I think that I don't know again because I haven't seen it. I keep saying that because I don't like making the statement like I know what I'm talking about when I haven't seen it. But it seems to me that watching it in its original intention would tie it back better to the first one and make it feel more like the middle part of a trilogy or the second part of a story.
Yeah, did they know they were going to make the third one?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
Didn't
not.
you say they had a release date for it before they even started writing it?
The production history behind 3 is really fascinating and really tortured. At this time, Coppola's studio, Zoetrope Studios, was in dire financial straits. It needed a cash infusion, and it needed it yesterday.
Was it... One from the Heart wasn't before that. That was the one... Was that the Lucas thing where Coppola... Giant production, and it did not make money back, and that's the thing that that started all this?
That
Or was
and
it through-
what was the one before that? The one that his son died during the production. Something Fields of Stone or Stone.
Hands of Stone? No, that's a boxing movie. What is? I know what you're talking about. It's wasn't the Cotton Club, was it?
No. But
Okay.
in any case, his studio was in dire straits. Puzo was toying around with the idea of a third movie. The studio, I mean, looking at what the first two did, that they would be on board with that in a second. It was basically like printing money. But the studio was so amped to get this out, they put a release date out there, and if I recall, it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day of '90. They locked in the release date before they even had a script.
Holy sh!
Right? So this is what they're up against.
They have a ticking clock now, even more so than they would have.
Right. And so Coppola and Puzo lock themselves in a room or a hotel somewhere, who knows, and they hammer out this really ambitious, really tight screenplay. I'm not sure if this is ever leaked anywhere. I don't know if it's available. It goes through a couple of different versions, but all of them integrally involve Tom Hagen as a character.
That's right.
As those of you that have seen Part 3 know, he's nowhere in the movie.
He's dead by this point, right?
The character, yes.
Yes.
The actor is still very much with us, thankfully.
Because his son is like being ordained. No, not ordained. He's getting a job in the Vatican, and he's like I don't know if I want to say placeholder. It's like, oh, Tom's not here, but his son is.
Right.
Well, what does he do for the plot? Not much.
He says hi to
around.
Michael while he's walking through that hallway that one in the Vatican that one time.
From what I've heard of the two major versions of the script they hammered out originally, in one, Tom gets assassinated, and Michael is sort of trying to avenge him. I could see that working. Whatever.
Pretty straightforward, overused trope thing, revenge story.
The other one that I think really could have made a lot of sense, seeing how 2 ended up, is it's Michael versus Tom. You remember towards the end of 2, it's increasingly clear they're having a bit of a falling out, well, when were you going to tell me you've been interviewing over in Vegas? Why is it that I have to ask you about this? Oh, no, Michael, I've always got your back,
What's the he took Tom off of being, what is the
Consigliere.
Consigliere, because he was not a wartime one, and I think that's planting those seeds of Tom is no longer in his ear anymore, even though in the second one it's like, you're the only one I trust.
Yeah, it's sort of a Fredo situation, I was passed over. So that would have been real interesting, but they're getting ready to film it, and Duvall, to his credit, says, I will absolutely come back. I'm thrilled about doing Part 3, but you're gonna pay me the same as Pacino.
Yep, and
Good
who
for him.
also
Yeah,
had a dispute. Didn't he ask for more money, and Coppola almost didn't want to make the movie. I
Yeah.
thought I read, it was a whole thing, because Pacino was huge by that point.
Oh, yeah.
He
And
would
he's
have
like,
definitely hit
I'll do
his-
it, but you gotta up my salary, and Coppola, furious.
So they had to cut him last possible minute, and now on an already limited production schedule, they've just spun their wheels for a couple months writing scripts that they can do almost nothing with. It had some of the broad strokes were there, the Vatican intrigue was still rolled into the plot somewhere, but they did a pretty massive overhaul.
Interesting.
And they're not adapting something anymore. They have to come up with it.
That is true. It's a lot harder after you do such a. I mean, the first thing my mind jumps to is something like Game of Thrones, where you absolutely knock it out of the park adapting works, and then you have to do it on your own, and then good luck. See, it's a lot harder to do it on your own.
Yeah, man.
And that just speaking of that movie's challenging production, another thing that kneecapped it pretty well. A lot of people criticize Sofia Coppola as being the weakest part of the movie. I would argue she's not fantastic in it, but part of it is she's severely handicapped by going up toe to toe with a bunch of A+ talent.
To be fair, I remember seeing her in a couple of the lines. I was like, is she even acting?
I mean, it's
Like, I didn't.
it's
it
not
just wasn't-
great, but you know,
No.
but even that was something that was a last-minute challenge that had to be overcome. Originally signed on to that role was Winona Ryder.
Ooh, I would have loved to see
And-
Winona in that.
As
That
I
would have been
understand it,
interesting.
Yeah.
she had some sort of medical problem, and she had to drop out the day filming started.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, all right, we need an actor in arm's reach. Who do we got?
Well, it's funny enough. Guess what? I have a daughter.
Let's bring your daughter to work day.
There is. I was gonna say. This time I was softer on her because she's not in it that much.
No.
And it's like, wow, I remember her being in this more. This isn't terrible. And then you get to the last scene, and she wrecks the vibe because it's like the tension's building. The assassin guy, the big guy's come. He's there, and Mike is right there. She goes, oh, "Dad, why are you doing this? You're ruining my life." I'm like, oh, because everything after. I can't believe this. Everything after she gets shot is really good. Like, that's the moment in the movie where I'm like, this is working really well. Unfortunately, it's when she stops talking.
I mean, to be fair, she's what? She's like 17 at the time.
Something.
What? Has she acted in anything else?
Well, I mean, she became a director.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, Sophia. She hasn't.
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't seen her in acting in that
Yeah.
much.
Wasn't she? She was the baby in the baptism scene of the first one, right? Wasn't that her?
That
or
sounds right.
Or was it Roman?
It was one of them. It was certainly
Yeah.
one of
Oh,
them.
that's funny. I didn't know that.
So, just to kind of point us back towards this cut, another one of those baffling things that you were talking, and I'm completely changing gears here.
No, but I appreciate where you're going with this. I put a mental pin in it and I lost track. So bring us back.
One of the things that I assume, again, because I haven't seen it, I said it again, I'm sorry. One of the things I assume is in the same place it normally is where Vito takes his revenge on Don Cicero. Ciccio.
Takes the train back to Corleone.
Yep.
This much earlier in the program, I had mentioned that this cut of the movie is mostly chronological, and this is one of those baffling things that just isn't.
It's
Yeah.
really. Thank you for saying that because I didn't. I thought when Jake and Jared were explaining to me what this was, I thought it was all in chronological, and I saw that. I'm like, something doesn't make sense. wait a second.
The problem is that when it comes up, it's been a good 4 or 5 hours since you've seen Robert De Niro.
Right, because in the De Niro bit, which is almost exactly the first hour of the film, like it's just a couple minutes over the first hour, in this cut, that ends with the sequence where he meets with the widow who's complaining about being evicted. He meets with the landlord and says, tries to make the deal to pay her rent, to pay more money, and then later the landlord comes back, meets with him. Oh, Maria, what a mistake.
Yeah.
Then you see them hoisting the Genco oil sign over the business, and then it is, just immediately we're into Godfather 1. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, no, there's more, though. Did I fall asleep? Let's rewind. So I'm scanning back through the first hour, and then, well, was that not in this cut? Well, that wouldn't make sense either. But no, it's just 4 hours later. Oh, well, here it is, I guess. I don't understand. I was thinking, was this an authoring error with the Laserdisc? But no, and sure enough, I'm checking on the back of these Laserdisc sleeves, it's got all of the chapter index. And sure enough, right there, deep into the, Michael Out West portion, there's the scene, train back to Sicily. I don't know what to make of this decision to keep just that part out there.
Do you think that it actually was a decision based on crossfades like you were talking about?
Yeah, this is something Jake and I were talking about off mic. I don't know. It was either Coppola felt that there was a very vital reason why only that piece had to be out of sequence, or So one of the things we were thinking about in our discussion off mic was that maybe it was out of place where it was because the transition from the end of that scene is a sort of slow crossfade into the congressional hearings. And, you know, at the time, I'm not fully sure exactly how they strung this together, but if you're, like, trying to slap this together on a Steenbeck or something, like, you're not going to have the easiest time trying to cut around that. Maybe that factored into it.
But you'd think they'd have, like, the original negatives at hand.
Well, here's where I really need to mention, because it hasn't come up yet, one of the things about this particular version is it is all full-frame pan and scan. It is not widescreen. And part of the reason for that is because, and I don't know if the situation has changed at the time since this was released, but at the time when this was put together in '92, the only version they had of some of this footage was, you know, like full-frame transfers from the 77 miniseries they did. Presumably in 77, when they put together that miniseries, they still had the original film elements. It's being broadcast for TV. Widescreen was really not a thing for home release. So of course you're going to trim it down to full frame. Fast forward to 92, who knows where those original film elements are? Maybe they have them. Maybe they're in a warehouse in Van Nuys somewhere. I mean, who knows, you know? So my understanding is at the time, the best quality footage they had was just on these, you know, U-matic video masters. And that also explains why some of that footage that's unique to this version and the Saga version, there's a noticeable change in quality.
I remember noticing that change in quality. And I have a quick gripe with a gripe, then a quick question to follow.
Yep.
One, the sound for the specific rip that I watched on my computer pretty much blew out my speakers.
Oh, yeah?
See, mine was really, really, really quiet.
Yours was quiet. Mine was the opposite. It was like,
Mine was just right.
So, just throwing that out there. But my actual question was...
Were you braying?
What?
Ah! What was that?
That was just my brain. That's just the
Pinky and the
noises that
brain.
my brain makes. But my actual
The
question
pinky
was...
and the brain.
I don't know if anybody knows the answer. Who actually edited this version?
My understanding, and I could be wrong about this, but my understanding is even if he didn't do the editing himself, Coppola was there. He at least approved the edit.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, but this is what my limited internet research has suggested.
It just came to my mind. I'm like, because I can't remember who the actual editor was for the original two.
Don't recall.
But I'd be
I can find it right here. Give me
Okay.
1 second.
with the power of IMDb and the internet on our side.
Slow internet.
We can find the answer to my question.
Yeah, give me a second.
3.
William Reynolds and Peter Zinner did the first movie.
Okay.
And then the second movie, as I scroll,
Riveting content.
is
Yeah.
Barry Melkin, Peter Zinner, and Richard Marx. And I believe I saw Barry Melkin did the 77 cut. And then let me go and sift out all this IMDb stuff for the editor of
I'm
this.
just so curious to know if the same editor worked on it, if it was someone completely different. Because that's one of the most interesting things, just going back to just the technical way of filmmaking that I think is interesting, is when you have somebody edit it that didn't, like, really work on it all that much, it brings such a new and interesting perspective. So I'd be curious to see if that got brought forward when they put together this.
Sure.
Barry Melkin was, I think, is probably credited for the first two, and then they put Walter Murch in the crew
I
for
thought
that
Walter Murch worked
because
on it
he
somewhere.
also worked on part 3 with Barry Melkin and Lisa Fruchtman, I'm going to guess is how you say that. Sorry, Lisa, if I botched that name. If you listen to us, follow us, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
So I thought maybe this little booklet that came with the set might shed some light on the situation, because among the things included in it are, like, a printed copy of the credits from this version.
Ooh.
But it doesn't shed a whole lot of light on that element. But in case you were wondering, it does tell you that all of Sofia Coppola's furs were provided by Fendi.
Oh, thank God.
So she's got that going for her, which is nice.
I was just randomly looking this up on eBay. It's not as expensive as I would think an item like that would be right now.
I'm trying to remember. I think I picked this up in 2001, 2002. At
Pretty
that
good shape.
Yeah, you know, I bought it in shockingly good condition. At that point, I guess it was only 10 years old. At that time, I mean, Laserdiscs as a whole were much, much cheaper because everyone, I mean, that was the very tail end of the format and people were just offloading them. I want to say I paid like $20 for it on eBay.
Oh,
But
I'm seeing it for about 70.
yeah,
I feel like
Generally.
now it probably
Inflation,
is more of
you
a collector's
know.
item and inflation.
And probably rarity. This was 10 years old when you bought it. Now it's way older and way more unavailable.
I'm surprised they've never done a modern format release.
My
You
guess
say
is,
that, but who would buy it?
I would.
Well, thank you, Jared, but
Oh yeah, no one collects. That's right.
well, I mean, people don't collect that much anymore. They really don't. I feel like.
Here we
but
go. He's just.
There's not a lot of collectors.
the closest they've
Sweetheart,
gotten.
there are whole companies that make their money off making collectibles and selling them to people.
Pop toys.
That's a collectible.
Yeah. But I was just saying. I feel like I didn't mean to cut you off. But
Anyway, go ahead.
The closest this has come to getting a modern release was not the full trilogy version, but the older 70s Godfather Saga version. Very, very briefly, for maybe, I don't know, 6 months or so back in 2015, it was streaming on HBO. It wasn't on there very long, but that's, as to my knowledge, that's the closest this has come to a modern release. While it's fresh in my mind, I should mention there's, as far as I know, exactly one scene in the Godfather Saga version that didn't make this cut. And what that scene is the original ending that they shot for Godfather 1 that was also the ending of the book. It is Kay in a church lighting votive candles, and the credits sort of scroll over that. That was originally shot as the ending of Godfather 1. It was never used for that purpose, but when they released the Godfather Saga version, they relocated that ending to then come after 2 to round out that segment.
So she goes back to being younger.
Well, you know, it
You have to know what
still
you're getting in.
thematically ties it all together,
That's fair.
you know, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but to the best of my recollection, the last sentence in the book is Kay lights a candle for the soul of Michael Corleone, and there you go.
If you think about it, if you have that be the final shot in this version of 2, the next scene is Michael at the ceremony thing in the church, the start of 3. That'd actually be a pretty cool transition.
That's a good point.
If you use it in the right way, like I think that'd be an interesting like it fades into a different church, 20 years later or whatever it is. Like I actually think that's pretty cool, but like they probably didn't know where it was.
Sure.
Also, one of the scenes, I think it's an added scene into the what is 2 of this movie, is the scene where Michael is eating. It's a flashback where Michael is eating with the family, and
That's
they all
in-
just
that's
sort
in
of
2.
leave.
Yeah.
Is it actually in the?
That's what I remember when I saw that. I remembered it was in there, but I didn't remember the significance. It comes in the second movie. All the De Niro stuff is done, and Michael, I can't remember. Is it before or after Fredo dies? It's right before.
I
Isn't
think
it?
it's after.
Or is it after?
Just after.
So
Yeah.
I think how it goes is they do the Fredo dies shot,
Yep.
him and looking at the water, and then that, and then they go back to the water again. I think is how it works.
And the way
I
it works
just watched it. I don't know.
thematically is like that's like the basically the end of his connection to that family. So it flashes back to they're gathering for Vito's 50th birthday. You don't see Brando, of course, because he would have asked $10 million to walk into the frame, and it would have been a weird illusion breaker to see him when we've already seen De Niro too for this but it's showing them around the table. It's before it's the day he's enlisted, And they all, and it's funny how you see the dynamics of the family. Like, Sonny is pissed at him, and Tom is surprised by him, and Fredo is supportive. And it's kind of interesting how all three have a different reaction. And it's kind of weird, he's just had Fredo killed, and Fredo's like the only one who supported him in that moment. And it's right after it happens, and they all leave to go meet their father, and he sits alone, and that kind of cuts back then to him alone on the bench. And it's a really powerful moment in that second movie to end it.
I sort of feel that should have been the ending shot. I feel like that would have caught me more.
It really, in my mind, ties together what I feel. It's almost a throwaway line of dialogue from one, but in my mind, it's really the thesis of the whole trilogy. It's Brando as Vito talking to Johnny Fontaine, saying, do you see your family? Well, that's good. A man who doesn't have his family has got nothing. And that's really, the kicker at the end of Godfather 3, the brief cut where you see Pacino in not terribly convincing old age makeup, and he's alone. He's got nothing. He's done all of this, but in the process, he's alienated his family. Everyone who he loved is out of his life,
Dead or estranged.
Exactly right.
And he's still at that villa.
Correct.
Where, what is his name? The old Don that gets shotgunned in the car.
Tomasino?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's still there. He never went back, it implies. He just lived there the rest of his days alone because he was starting to connect to Kay again. And then once that happens, and she can't understand them probably because they're speaking Sicilian Italian, but she understands, like, it never ends.
That's exactly.
And that's the moment where she's gone. She's gone. Plus their daughter dying is another big.
They have a little bit to do with it.
Yeah.
Just a little.
But that's like the true moment where it's like, yeah, she's done with him. If she wasn't already, she now is. So.
You know what's also interesting, and this is probably a point that's been talked to death. One of the most famous quotes from this trilogy, I try to get out, but they pull me back in, comes from the least popular movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
I meant to go back and check, and I didn't have the chance to, but in sort of my mind's eye, I'm also sort of remembering the cut of that line that's in the trailer is different and is much more intense in the trailer. It's sort of soft-spoken in the movie, but I remember it being a for lack of a better word, a very Pacino moment in the trailer.
Speaking of that, we talked about it beforehand. 70s Pacino is very different from 90s Pacino.
Oh, you got all the Pacino in there.
He is so restrained in those first two movies. For most of it, there are moments, but that's human. He's a very calm presence, so that's why his descent in that second movie is really good, because he's just a very, quietly cunning person, and he has that one outburst that we know of where my wife and kids are playing because of the
in my home,
In my
where my wife sleeps, and he slowly loses where my wife sleeps and my children play with their toys.
But it feels like a human moment. By the time 3 is out, he has become the Al Pacino everyone knows, where he yells random words in the middle of sentences like that. So then you get to my favorite line delivery of 3, where I believe it's after
It's
after they kill Joey Zaza.
It's
right?
very
Zaza.
near that line of "I try to get out, but they pull me back," because he says that in the kitchen right before he has the diabetic coma stroke.
And then in the coma, he's out of the coma now. He's sitting there, and they're like, "Yeah, we called the hit because you couldn't, and we took out just how do you say that? Zaza."
Joey Zaza. In my notes, this is a little bit of a side note, and I won't detract from the point you're making for too long, but in my notes, I have a stray comment from, in sort of the party sequence at the beginning of 3, when Michael's trying to broker the peace between
Joey and Vincent?
Yeah, Joey and Vincent. He keeps referring to him over and over again as Mr. Joey Zaza, Mr. Joey Zaza. And it just reminded me of sort of that verbal tick that Scientologists have, where it's always Mr. David Miscavige. I don't know. Stray note.
Yeah, so at that point, it's like they've bumped him off at the parade, and he's mad, and he just goes, "It is not what I wanted." And I had to pause it. I was laughing so hard. I'm like, It's full 90s Pacino now. He's just screaming now. It's not like Michael, because the old Michael, the pull me back in, does feel like it, but then when he starts having the stroke, he's Freedom! 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 Just starts screaming, and I'm laughing. I'm like, I know this is what you do now, but the character's older. You think he wouldn't be as loud, but
the progression of his acting is just
It's hilarious.
such a journey.
It really is.
There was an interview I saw with him talking about his performance in Heat.
I was going to
And
bring up Heat. That's like
his-
the pinnacle of Pacino. It's peak.
You know, his
Peak
little
Peak Pacino.
Peak Chino.
Pikachu.
Get your little Pikachu.
His little like actor's secret that he created for himself was that his character was just ultra on cocaine. Like, that is the key to unlocking this role. That's how I'm going to play this.
Yep, sounds about right.
But like, you hear about some actors talk about certain roles that just haunt them and forever change them. Like, once you're in a certain mindset, like, it's forever part of you. You see that with Nicholson and the Joker. You know, you saw that with
Nick Cage.
Eric Roberts from Star 80. You know, like, certain things, like, you can't really come back from that. And I feel like that's, you know, Godfather 3...
If you go full Pacino, you can't go back.
That's exactly right. Godfather 3 sort of firmly set him on this trajectory, but after Heat, there's no coming back. That's just like...
He goes for it's not what I wanted to. Hooah! For 2.5 hours. And then you get that whole scene where he's like interrogating, beating up the... Ah! It's like, yeah, that's it. And it ends with Jack and Jill.
You know, thereafter, every starring role with Pacino is just always on cocaine.
Oh,
I love it so much. Oh my god.
yeah, that's just when you're watching that third one, it's like, this is
you
a
can
completely
tell.
different actor in a different decade playing a different version of his character. Like,
By comparison, I'm going to say, I know it's not a bad movie, and I shouldn't dog on it that much, because it's really not that
The
bad
third
of a
one?
movie. Yeah.
it's not. It's a
It's
good
not.
movie.
It's just
So,
compared to
but
the first two.
by
And you
com-
have to.
yeah.
By comparison, it kind of feels like a TV movie to me.
A little bit.
Like, because like you got 1 and 2, and it's. I'm not gonna say that they filmed in Italy, but scenes are in Italy. Scenes are.
It's shot different, too.
Yeah, and the scenes are
It's much
like
brighter.
they're
It's much
out-
more...
They're outside. They're inside. They're different.
blasting Elvis Costello.
They're in different places, and then you get to the third one, and it's mostly in boardrooms.
The discussion
In
I was...
kitchens.
Oh, I still talk about the third one with Elvis Costello.
Oh.
Like, they're outside a good deal because it's like, hey, we can now go to these places much easier. Because I feel like the other ones, it's like, we got to make the most of this. This third one's like, let's go here and here and here. Because they go all over the place, but they are inside a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel as contained as the first two do.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I lost the comparison.
A discussion I was having with Jake off mic, a comparison that I was talking through with him, is I likened it to sort of the different approach and feel between Girl with the Dragon Tattoo versus Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. You know,
You're talking the first two Swedish then, right? Version?
The 1 and 3.
Oh, that's the third one.
Yeah, the Swedish.
What's the second one?
Girl Who Played with Fire.
That's it. I've only seen the first one.
For the sake of my comparison, I'm leaving the middle one out. But, like, the first two Godfather movies were, I mean, sure, there's a lot of dialogue in the way that 70s movies had, but it was a lot more action, crime drama. 3, it's much more like political intrigue. Like, you're really getting into, like, the machinations of international politics and business deals, and, that's neither good nor bad, but it's certainly a totally different approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could tell, especially, like, after watching almost 6-7 hours of, like, the first two, and then the third one happens, and, like, oh, there's a shift. There's a change.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's noticeable.
Like you said, it's 15 years later. So
It's weird how those first two have I say like a black and white, like everything bright feels very white and everything dark is like really black, and that's the way they lit it. And then that third one is very gold.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a 90s movie.
I noticed that.
And
Like Top Gun.
that's what... That doesn't feel like a 90s movie. That's not even from the 90s. You know this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I confused gold with yellow. My bad.
You are wrong in several ways that I'll explain to you off mic. We haven't the time. We simply haven't the time.
Yeah, talking about those transitions for movies, though, it's just, you get to the end of that first one, the door closing. That's one of, like, the all-time ending shots. That's
everybody
the ending
knows
shot.
that shot.
It's just such... And then there's more movie, and you go, oh. And then you
just keeps going.
And I know Jake likes the shot of Michael alone at the table, but people also bring up the ending shot of 2 a lot in like great ending shots because it's real quick. It zooms into him alone, and like as it gets closer, half his face goes dark and you can't see it, and the other half still in the light. And everyone has dissected that scene to death too. And it's like we have these 2 iconic shots, and it's not the end. And then when that third movie starts, it's like, oh boy.
That's my thoughts exactly. It's like,
we have the ceremony, and then we have like swing jazz music playing in the next scene. It's like, this feels weird. Yeah. But this time around, that third one, I liked it a lot more than the first time. I watched it the first time in college because I actually didn't watch all 3 nights in a row, like I mentioned. I watched 2 because I heard 3 was bad. So I was like, I'll watch it the next night. I think I was busy. I go, I'll watch it soon. Fast forward 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm in my room. I had my own room in college my first year, and I was like, you know what? It's 1 a.m. Let's put in... Let's put in Godfather Part 3. I remember,
what else are you going to watch at 1 a.m.?
I remember I had all the lights out.
I had start from the beginning of the Godfather saga.
Yeah, right.
I remember I had my blinds open, and there's like an outside light shining, and I don't remember why I had them open, but I was sitting there watching The Godfather Part 3. Funny enough, the movie ended. I turned off the TV before the lights, and like I'm sitting on my bed, and like this car goes by and shines a light into my room, and I'm like, what in the world? I still don't know to this day what that was, because it's at Western Michigan, and it's in the valleys. You can't get a car where my room window was. You can't get a car back there.
Oh.
On like a road. That's a sidewalk, and then forest. There's like 10 to 15 feet before like an uphill to a forest on a hill, and there's like fencing way down here because I'm like the 3rd out of 4th building. They would have had to come onto the grass, out of the parking lot, and gone along the side of it, and had like this big spotlight. I think it was campus security.
You know what? You should have hit the ground. It could have been a helicopter. You don't know.
I can't imagine what their reaction is. It's probably security, because it was a big spotlight thing.
I'll bet you it was security.
So they shine it in, my blinds are open, I'm sitting on my bed, and the first thing they see in this dark room is me going... and I'm just frozen. I'm like, what in the world? And then they keep going. And I just sit there like... I'm scared for my life. I just watched this movie. What happened again? I thought I was going to die. I shut my blinds and turned on the light after that. But they're probably like, what is he doing in there? But that was my experience watching it. And at the end, I was like, this isn't bad. This isn't great. It's fine. It's, whatever. And then watching it this time, 8 years later, it's like, I actually like this. It took 2/3 of the movie to get into that Godfather mindset where it's like, this feels like the first 2. It's not as good, but it is.
I'm right there with you. I had the exact same feeling this time around. Don't get me wrong, I don't like it half as much as the first 2, but I appreciate it a lot more. And maybe it's a component of watching it all contiguous like this, but this time I caught a lot more of the callbacks they do to the earlier films. The little characters that they tie in, little bits of dialogue referencing prior things. Just not perfect, but a higher appreciation. That's for sure.
I really like, you just said, the highlighting of the other movies. Those cuts going backwards with like the dancing things. They cut back to him dancing with Mary at the beginning of the movie, then cutting to him dancing with what is her name? Yep, in Sicily after they were married, and then cutting back to him and Kay at the first wedding. Works really well. It's a little weird because all 3 are filmed differently.
Sure.
Even though 2 of them are from the same movie, but it's like, it was weird, but it's like going back with those 3 scenes, I was like, that's a really good connection. This is like, the last like 10, 15 minutes, not longer, it's like a half hour. Everything in the opera is really good. It's no baptism scene, and it's really long. It's really stretched out. It's really good, though. Like the way everything lines up. The assassin guy can't get the shot because the guys keep coming, and he kills them, and by the time he gets back, Michael is moved, and like that leads to the steps. And I just remember thinking, like, this is a pretty complicated sequence. And it's paced really well, and there is tension, and there is, like, a payoff to it that is the most powerful part of the movie. It has to be. And the moment he's screaming...
The mostly silent scream.
Is so good. And then when it does cut to the, I chuckled a little bit, but... It worked, and the music's really good in that moment. I also like the frame of Andy Garcia when he shoots the guy, just like that. We'll get to him in a second. But just like, the ending of that movie is good. That is a good ending to this guy's whole story. And that's why the note in there that I saw off between takes was the tragedy of Michael Corleone, and the 2020 cut is the death of Michael Corleone. It's like Coda, isn't it?
Coda... the death of Michael Corleone.
So it's a really good ending to a story. It's a good but mixed bag movie, but I think the hate for it isn't deserved. It was just in the moment. It's a follow-up to two of the biggest movies of all time, and the critics push hard for it because it got a Best Picture nomination and 6 others, including Andy Garcia. Like, it's a big deal critically. Of course, Sophia won Worst Actress and Worst New Star at the Razzies. Which she was going to, but I do think the movie has more value than we thought. Not us, but people thought.
It's important to remember the context it came out in too, because at the time it came out, they just were not making gangster movies like this anymore. You know, this is not exactly what they were doing in the 70s, but it's a natural extension of that. Meanwhile, I want to say Goodfellas came out 3 months prior.
Yep.
So this is just not what people were expecting or wanting when you're going to the movie to see a gangster film.
It's much slower than Goodfellas 2. That's the other thing. It's a much different movie. And the other thing is it does feel like a 90s movie also, because how many, I'll say courtroom dramas and like procedural movies came out late 80s into like the late 90s. There are so many. The Firm, The Client. I keep going. What else is there? A Few Good Men. Like, all these big courtroom movies are coming out, so it kind of fits into that type of movie, even though it's not a courtroom movie. So it's another thing of like the first two are more gangster movies than that third one is, because at times it also changed. But that's got to be another part of it. It's like they're trying to make it appeal for the modern day at the time, be more contemporary, even though it takes place 10 years before. Yeah, about 10, 11 years before, but...
Yeah, the bulk of 3 is in 78, so...
It's funny. We, off camera, off mic, we were talking about how we're probably not going to talk about 3. We're only going to talk about 1 and 2. We have only talked about 3.
Well,
I think because everyone's talked to death of the first 2 and then talked about how much they hate the third one, and we're kind of going like, no... There's value here. We liked it better this time, I believe. We've said it. Have you? What about you guys?
Like I said, I haven't seen it before. I've never seen it.
I liked it better than at least the first time I watched it, but we got to remember the state of mind I was in the first time I watched it.
But again, looking back at this movie, it's like, I think people who talk about it are really harsh because it's not the first 2 movies. It's never going to be.
Its greatest sin is the comparison that it naturally attracts.
And that gap, that 16-year gap.
And so to bring it back to the version that we actually watched, it's done no favors by immediately following 1 and 2.
That's true.
Oh, man.
That almost
It
makes
fades
it
right
harder.
into it, doesn't it?
On the one hand, it helps because you can appreciate a lot of the little callbacks to the earlier films, but you're also forced into comparing it to what
You
came
quite
before
literally
it.
watched like 5 hours, or 5 to 6 hours at that point of other...
So again, like this version of the movie, it's not, it's not necessarily better or worse, but it's certainly a lot different, and it's
a novelty, and it's I think a worthwhile novelty to watch.
I'm glad I saw it.
I think it's an experience.
I'd heard about it for so long. It's like I finally, I never thought I'd see it.
Is it?
That's true. I never thought I would ever watch
Yeah.
this, but I knew it existed.
That's true.
Here we are. I watched.
Let me ask you this: you probably heard it a lot. You probably heard a lot about it from me because it's the version I talk about.
Mostly you, because I could not find it anywhere online because I was searching for the right thing.
Is it? Do you find what you watch to be representative of how I talked about it?
Yeah, I can understand watching it in one sitting would be like sticking a metal stake in your forehead, where you just you
Okay,
don't die.
maybe
yet,
not
you're
that
just kinda,
bad, but-
you're kind of just frozen like that while you watch it because you watched it one sitting in the middle of the night. It didn't feel like that for me watching, but I can understand like, oh, I'd be brain dead halfway through this if I watched it like you did the first time.
So arguably, it would have been better served in the same manner that the Godfather saga late 70s cut was, where maybe it's a TV miniseries.
So like the
or
first.
that, or even if it personally, because I love watching TV shows, and so I love spending this much time with characters. But you gotta break it up somehow. Like, give me chapters, give me episodes, give me something of that nature. And I think this would have been a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable to watch, at least for me.
I noticed there are random cuts to black.
There are.
And
That's
it's gotta be.
Oh, right.
Is
So
that from you?
Confession time.
It just
So-
all of a sudden goes whoop. Is that you flip?
Not some of it is original, but a lot of it, what you're seeing is where the disc or the side changes are. See,
Okay.
It is where the,
what I ran up against is I captured all of this, and so then I've got these gaps where all the side breaks are, and I wanted to stitch it all together, but I didn't want to have to re-encode the whole movie to do it. So at least in the editor I'm using, to be able to make these cuts without having to re-encode it, I'm forced into cutting at keyframes. And so I have the sort of Sophie's Choice decision of leaving a second or two of a little black cut or trimming out a little bit of the scene. And as the preservationist I am, I always err on the side of including as much as possible at the expense of a little bit of what do you want to call it, continuity between across scenes.
Gotcha. And unlike Sophie's Choice, the whole movie is good. People love that movie. The only good part of that movie is the titular part. That's great. Everything else, I don't care. His main character is this guy's simping upstairs for 2 hours.
Hot takes.
I've seen it only once. Maybe a rewatch changes, but I remember thinking like everything in her backstory is really tragic and really good, and Meryl Streep is amazing in that movie. Why isn't she the main character? Oh, because she's a woman. In early 1980s. I think it was the same year as I won't say the name of the next week's pick. I believe 82. I believe it was. Yeah, I won't
Sounds
say.
right.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll get off Sophie's
So
Choice.
I can see what you're saying. Where do you think you would divide that? Like maybe like one episode is the Robert De Niro stuff. The next
Which is about an hour.
The next episode is up to where Michael kills the police chief. Is that 2 hours, you think?
No, that's in the first hour, I
really
think.
tough to
Is it in the
talk
first hour?
I'd say before he returns from Sicily, I think the last things you see is like after Sonny's
getting-
death, and then the car blows up.
Apollina,
And,
yeah.
yeah,
okay.
and
Or is
somewhere
that
in
his-
there, right before he comes back, when everything is.
Apollonia.
Apollonia.
There you are.
Yeah. And then where would you cut it after that?
Probably the end of the
I
first
think
one
that
would be the next cut. And then I don't know where you would cut to. Like
Yeah,
how do you even
maybe before Cuba, and then after Cuba.
That's where there's a side break, for what that's worth.
Yeah, and I was telling you this a couple days ago. I completely forgot about the Cuba part. I don't know how, but that's what 10 years will do to you. But I completely forgot they went to Cuba, and that's like the biggest part of that story. Is because I didn't really pay attention because I wasn't engaged with the Michael stuff.
It is funny for how much that second movie is about them moving the family to Vegas. They're not really in like what we would stereotypically think of as Vegas. They're in Michael's house, and they're in Cuba. They're not in a whole lot of like casino type stuff.
But they talk about them a
They
lot.
talk about it a lot.
Yeah. Another thing about separating the De Niro stuff from the Pacino stuff. The De Niro stuff shows the moment where he met Hyman Roth.
Thank you for bringing this up.
And that is a super interesting thing to show him, and then I don't know where it's placed again, but like he's an essential part of like the biggest part of the antagonists. And
it's like another 4 hours down the line, and this is part of, again, what makes that trip back to Sicily that's way out of place all the more baffling. As I'm trying to rationalize why that was out of place, going back to our earlier discussion, another thought I had is, well, maybe they just felt it was really super important that you remembered who Don Tomasino was. Because you see him, get shotgunned or whatever, and then he's in the wheelchair. Fast forward, he's significantly older. Here he is in a wheelchair. It's like, all right, great.
And he gets shotgunned again.
Well,
poor guy.
I know, right?
Opens his home to Michael, and he can't escape the other shot in that barrel.
Can't catch a break, But if that's the rationale for leaving it in, then surely you would have done the same thing with the introduction of Hyman Roth. It's a lot to ask that you remember that 4 hours later.
It's right around like the 40-50 minute mark. It's right near the end of De Niro's stuff. It's in passing, and I remember thinking like, that's right, Hyman Roth is Lee Strasberg in the 50s, and we don't see him for another like 4 hours. Right. Lee Strasberg is interesting because whenever I'd see the like Oscar nominees, he's an Oscar nominee for The Godfather Part 2 for supporting. And I remember thinking like, wait, Lee Strasberg, like the method actor guy? And it is. And there are a couple, like Brando's one of his students, isn't he? Mm-hmm. Like all about, but which now method acting recently has come under fire by people because people do take it too far.
Yeah, Jared Leto.
Not Jared Leto.
Yeah. It was,
among others.
Yeah, that's the only thing what was I gonna say? The first movie, both the first and second movie had 3 nominees for supporting actor, and I remember the first movie. You have James Caan in one of the best characters. He's so good at playing a character. He's not a good person, but he's likable. He's charismatic. When he beats up Connie's piece of crap husband, it's not a good thing because it leads to his downfall, but man, does it feel good. And apparently he wasn't supposed to hit him with the trash can head. And also, there is one punch in that fight that he clearly misses him. You can, because of the angle. He swings. You see it? That's like the one part of the fight. It's like, yep, that's the one mistake. And you have him, and I miss James Caan so much.
Which really quickly, bringing up James Caan, when I realized watching it this time around, young James Caan looks a lot like, oh my god, his name just escaped me. Ben Affleck. Do you guys see it at all? I feel like young James Caan.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I was watching
the hair is the biggest difference, just because he's got that short curly hair in a lot of his movies, and Affleck does not.
Didn't he have that like that in Air?
He did. Maybe that's the other reason why
his hair curly in Air.
It is. Maybe that's because I just watched Air, so maybe that's the other reason why it's stuck. Because I watched it like, I know that's not Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
But what the heck, man? He looks less like young Ben Affleck.
Yeah. So you have him playing Sonny, and then you have Duvall getting nominated for Tom Hagen, which very, very good performance for a good character for the first one.
Yeah, that's. Okay.
He's in that first one more, it feels like, than the second. He's more.
I would say so.
More focused on him, and then Pacino for Michael, which like everything pre-Sicily and post-Sicily. Like, could you put them next to each other? Completely different people in the best way. Like, just Sonny dying, his first wife, like, and everything, and killing people to get sent to Sicily. Like, it's just changed him. And now, when he wasn't a part of it at all and didn't want anything to do it, now he has been fully corrupted into it. You have those 3 performances, and none of them win, and they give it to Joel Grey for Cabaret. Joel Grey is great. That is a great performance. I hate that movie.
Do you really?
I hate it. I need to watch it again, because I watched it once, and I'm sitting there going, why do people love this?
Oh, man.
Like, you see, everyone...
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where I'm not, like, sitting here wanting to hate it. It's like, people love this.
Do you know what?
Why? I hate all these characters. The songs are decent.
It's not a feel-good movie. You don't feel great about yourself or life. Or
but it's
anything,
like, Joel Grey is great. Liza's fine. I like Liza Minnelli a lot. I don't really care for her there. And then that British guy she's with.
Michael York.
Yeah. Michael York. I couldn't even remember it was Michael York because I want to punch him in the face.
I mean, that's
and I like
sort
Michael
of the
York.
point.
And I know, it's just like, that's it. So Joel Grey, I love him. He won. I'm glad he has an Oscar. He is kind of like he won over 3 pretty iconic performances. Not that his isn't iconic, but I've always had a sore spot about that. It's like, okay. But then De Niro won for the second one, which Strasberg and what is his first name? Michael Vigazzo won, which he's great. There needs to be more of him in that. What is his character name again? I'm gonna Frank. What? How do you say his last name? Pentangeli.
Pentangeli.
Pentangeli. I'm really bad at pronouncing names.
Frankie Five Angels.
Yep. Those 3, like the performances in these movies are really, really good.
Going back to our conversation of part 3, where Duvall was originally supposed to be in it, and he was sort of papered over last minute. In 2, Frank Pentangeli wasn't originally a character. That was originally written for Clemenza from part 1. It turns out he wanted more money. He was too much of a pain. Production just didn't want to deal with him.
Richard S. Castellano?
That's the guy.
I don't know how he pronounces it, but yeah, I see his name right there. Go ahead.
Nope. So, there it is. There you are.
Yeah, he's such a good character in that first movie. He fills in that Luca Brasi fixer role really well, and there is that line of, so it was Tessio. I would have guessed Clemenza. And I was like, that's interesting. Now that I think about that would be a good setup for that second movie, but asking too much. And also seeing him in the past.
For the third movie?
No,
the second.
Clemenza's not in the second movie in modern day. He was saying similar to the third movie, how one was written over in the second movie. They had to put Frank in there instead of Clemenza.
So maybe he didn't betray him in the first movie, but he still does in the second.
It kind of sets up this, like, there's suspicion on him. So, and also, like, just Clemenza's the reason Vito gets into things, too. It's kind of a cool, like, it's just such a cool thing that could have happened, but what we got is great because Michael Vigazzo is so good as Frank.
He plays a great drunk.
Oh, man. The Michael stuff is much better, I think I might have said, than when I remembered. It's like, it's just the way it's edited together without any breaks makes it feel weird, and it's way slower, because just like the third movie, it's a lot of sitting in rooms talking. Whereas the Vito stuff covers multiple years and does a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
That is one thing that I'm going to have you and I have the same hot take. Separate from the cut that we watched for this, separate from the cut that we're talking about, 1 and 2, now again, having not seen either of them separate from this, I would say that the story in 1 is... I would call 1 the better movie than 2.
I agree.
And I know that is
a lot of people disagree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But I just think that its vibe matches, like, clicks with me more, and I think it's a more compelling story. That being said, I don't know that I can say that having not seen the way it was originally released.
Jake, I literally am the polar opposite of you. Because up until this viewing of this cut, in my head, I always held the second one over the first one. Now, after watching this and how it bounces back and forth, like, and how it cuts it all together, I'm like, dang it. I might like the first one a little bit more.
That's not opposite of me. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I thought you said...
No,
the first one is the tighter experience.
Yeah, but I thought you said you...
No, he didn't switch.
Oh.
He's saying he believes that, but he's also not seen the theatrical cut.
I was saying, after seeing this version, I changed to agree with you. Let's just say that.
So arguably, the theatrical cut of 2 is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. They don't exist well separate, but I still think together they don't match the first one. It's more iconic. It's tight. It's better paced. It's tighter. It's shorter, and shorter has always been better. But I think it doesn't waste anything. It just moves through the story so naturally, where the second one, not that it doesn't, but when you're cutting back and forth, it's a different feel. And there's just something, like when way back in this, where I said how me and Hammy, like, hear that trumpet and get pulled in. That might have been off camera. I can't remember. We've been talking for so long. Right away, first note of 1, and you get sucked in, and it doesn't let you go. And this is probably more preference. 2 takes longer for me to get into. And I think it's because it's doing more and it's expanding it. That's what sequels do. But also, it's the classic 2 can't be better if 1 is not already the best. But I also personally think 1 is better.
I did look this up because I was very curious.
That is a... Sorry. One second.
Here.
That is a complicated reasoning.
It is, because so many people think the second one's better, and I don't think so.
Go.
I think that first one's like the perfect American movie.
It really is. Quick question. Do you know, how long, because, so I looked it up because I was curious. The second one is longer than the first
It's
one.
like 200 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, the second one is 3 hours and 22 minutes. The first one is just under 3 hours.
Yeah, it's like 179 or
so
something.
it's almost a full 30 minutes longer than the first one.
Wow.
So that's just crazy to me.
That's 40 minutes.
And Dicky Map.
Didn't you say
3 hours?
two? You
The
said
second
it
one
was
was
3 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah, and the other one is 2 hours and 50, isn't it?
2 hours 55.
Okay.
2:55.
Oh,
yeah.
I did the math wrong. I did Dicky math.
Oh,
He did the math right. Suck.
no!
Anyway, I just think it's interesting that it was a full 30 minutes longer. Like that's
The other thing that I'll say is that is that Pacino just does not have the screen presence that Brando does.
No.
I don't think he can carry that movie.
to be
like,
fair, nobody has the presence that Brando does.
well, and fair as that is, but as I'm considering it and as we're talking about it, and like when you separate, like I would even argue that Pacino does not have the screen presence that De Niro does.
That's
De Niro is
fair. That's
probably the best part of 2, if I didn't already say it.
So can the argument be made that Michael really can't carry, at least at that stage,
interesting.
can't carry that movie by itself?
Yeah, because I think in that third one, Pacino does carry the movie. Not alone, but like it relies more heavily on him than the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because just the change in his acting and his status as a star is different. Because
That's true.
going
at that
into
point,
it,
they wanted it to be more because Pacino was so.
Wow, he
big.
also wanted more money
there's
too.
Also a
like
little
we
bit.
said.
There's also a little bit that in 2, he's really whiny and makes like I can look at it and say that's a bad decision. Of
course,
that's a bad decision.
They tried to assassinate him, so he's not thinking.
It's not exactly.
That's true, but like it's like still like I don't know. Maybe it's just watching it right after the first one is just it changes the dynamic of it.
It's that classic example, and we've talked about it in our other series, but this is a good one. A supporting character becoming the main character. He becomes the main character in the first movie. He basically is, but it takes a while because we're focused on Brando. And then when Brando's out of the movie for an hour, it does become Michael's movie, and that's where that switch happens. But he's not carrying the full load. And so you get to that second movie, it's like, yeah, we've made a supporting character because he's nominated for supporting actor. So they put his name in as the supporting because Brando won Best Actor for that first one. So you get to that second one, it's like, okay, now he is the main, but he doesn't even have all the screen time because De Niro is, even though they put him in as supporting because he does have less screen time, still, he kind of feels like that secondary main character in a way, but Michael is the main character of the second one.
That's the other thing I didn't remember, and I'm jumping. I'm jumping back and forth between movies here.
Who
that's,
isn't?
Yeah, honestly.
What
That's fair.
movies? It's one movie. We can go anywhere we want.
That's fair.
We got chapters.
Yeah, it's just the guy.
There is something that I didn't remember about Michael's time in Italy. Oh God, I can't remember her name.
Apollonia. You're dropping a couple
Apollonia.
syllables.
Apollonia.
Think Bologna. Apollonia.
Anyway, Apollonia.
Very good.
Is that a valley?
Boy, couldn't tell you.
I think that's Napa.
Apollonia.
Shut up, you wino.
I figured maybe it was a feminization of Apollo. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking too. So I forgot that he got married one time
You
already.
did,
yeah.
But
I
then
always
I
remembered that.
But then I also forgot that she so when I remembered I was like, doesn't she die or something? And I couldn't remember and then when she said the car, I was like, what? Oh!
She got casinoed, but she actually died. She didn't get saved by a piece of metal. Sorry if that spoiled Casino for you.
Also, it's
Matt.
this much. You probably have seen it.
don't assume.
I know.
You should only assume that they've watched the
Especially
Godfather movies
with-
if they're watching this, not anything else.
Fair enough.
Especially don't assume, even if it's a big movie, because people are going to care more if it's a big movie.
Or shows.
Yeah, Mr. Mandalorian spoiler.
Oh man, you can Drew. If you go back in the podcast history, you can find the episode where he straight up ruins a big moment at the end of one of the Mandalorian
I
seasons.
drained the life
Not
from Jake's face.
only does he spoil what
You
it
can
was,
see the moment my soul leaves my body.
he spoiled the exact episode it is. Jake was like halfway through one, and he gave him something in the next season. And he's like, well, thanks for telling me what. Well, you would have gotten there eventually. It's like, now I know where to look for it, too. And I think I did like a split screen of him like, thanks. And there's this pause, and he goes, oh my gosh, did I just ruin that for you?
Oh, brutal.
It's wonderful. Oh my goodness.
What was the other thing? And then he tried to
There was
gaslight
another
his way
thing.
out
There
of
was
it.
one more.
It was
It
like,
was
it was
Hawkeye.
the end of Hawkeye. Yep.
It's not the end. The beginning of an
Because
episode.
I got it mixed up with Black Widow.
You said that, and then I
yeah.
said, that's not in Black Widow. I'm trying to correct you because, them out there, they're going to be like, that's wrong. That's wrong. Be screaming at us instead of listening to us. So I'm trying to say, you already ruined it, and you're trying to backtrack. Jared actually ruined it. And I'm like, you can't just keep saying it. You can't gaslight our audience. They're just going to go, that's
I'll
wrong.
gaslight every one of you know.
No, Dickie, you won't.
I was going to say about Apollonia Bologna,
Oh my God.
that the first time I watched it, I'm 18, I think. I'm sitting there, and I'm going like, but I know he shuts the door on Kay. I've seen that in like 5 books. He's married to... How does that work? Okay, there's 2 hours left. What? Okay. Boobs! Okay, now how does he get back? That was the exact one. It's like, I didn't know that was in here. I hope no one heard that. That was literally, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was that kind of movie. That's my experience watching The Godfather. And like the only other scene I had seen, it doesn't have anything to do with anything, is I did this like video compilation of the AFI Top 100, like as a game at like a holiday party with my family.
Sure.
And it was, that's 100 movies. So if you show too long of a clip, that's like a 20, 30-minute game.
Yeah.
Which some of the clips are really short, but you get to, I think it was a pre-edited one that I found for the 1998 list where The Godfather is third. So it gets to that, and it's the scene where it's the last time Michael and Vito are talking, and he's just, Brando with the makeup just, I never wanted this for you. That whole scene that they have. And that was like the quick clip. I'm like, I wonder what that means in the movie, because I hadn't seen it yet. But this is, by the way, number 3 in the 98 list, and then for the 07 list, it's number 2. Casablanca and Godfather flipped, and Godfather Part 2, I think, stayed
That's
at like
definitely
34 or 32. It stayed in the same spot, I believe. So they're both up in the top 100, and then 3 is not even close to that list.
Is 3 even on? I don't think 3 is even on.
Not even close.
No.
Wouldn't imagine.
It's a fun list, except
is.
for Cabaret and Sophie's Choice. You see why I had to watch those now? Because I'm trying to get this list done, and it's like,
I had to pick,
that's on the list. You skip over, and I list like 30 movies on their nominated list. But you put this in here?
I had to pick for a side tangent, but what isn't? I had to pick 10 movies off the AFI list when I was getting into my for my high school. I went to
Back when you watched movies.
I still watch movies. Okay.
Sure.
And for my high school that I went to for half the day, it was like a career tech center kind of thing, and I went for multimedia. And so there's like it was the summer. You know how you used to get summer reading lists? This is what it was for my film school summer watch lists. You have to pick 10 movies off the top 100 and watch it. I was like, yeah, it's the best summer homework.
Of course, this is like early 2010s.
Yeah,
and
100%.
it's very hard to find movies then because streaming had not taken off. That's why it took me 5 years to finish that list, because I have to either DVR it off TCM or I have to like find because I didn't use illegal sites at the time. I didn't know how. I'm pretty computer stupid still. But it's like I'd have to go to the store and buy it. And after I finished that list, like a year later, I walk in to Barnes & Noble, and they have a whole section with every single movie set aside saying the AFI Top 100. And I go,
Is that the first time you had ever been into Barnes & Noble, apparently?
Probably, maybe. All I know is I never saw that before, and they're this big section. I go,
Man.
That's my step scene from the third one. It's this is exactly what I want.
Just a silent scream that slowly comes to fruition.
We're gonna bring it back too, by the way. That was nice.
Yeah. To go back to the third movie, though, the only nominated actor in the third movie for the Oscar was Andy Garcia as Vincent, and he is
that true? He was
wow. He was. That's his lone Oscar nomination. I think he's really good in that movie. He's a bit of a bastard. Bad pun. I didn't mean it like that. He is just like, he's not a good person at all. But there's something, just like James Caan, there's something about him. I remember you saying beforehand, you didn't really like his character, at least before we had watched. And as I'm watching, I'm like, I really like his character. I don't know why. I like him. He's cool. What did you feel this time?
I don't know, but the loudest thing that's happening in my brain right now is the cousin thing is really...
Yeah, I don't like that.
There might be a bit of that that's colored by that.
Yeah, that scene when he's, like, cooking dinner and, like, rolling stuff with her, and they're like...
Yeah, the hand thing.
I hope no one was near me watching that, because it was just me going...
So,
I was like, what the heck is going on?
You know
Because they're only half cousins, but they're still gross.
But still.
You know how I have that adeptitude of looking away at key moments?
Yeah? What did you do?
It kind of worked in reverse here. I looked away to see this part of the scene that set that up, and I looked back, and all I see is their hands like doing this, and I'm like, what happened? I looked away for a second.
And then, like, the whole, like Michael telling her no, it's like, yeah, this is gross. Stop.
So weird.
What happened to Bridget Fonda?
Who I totally forgot was in that. That was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, but then she's out of the movie. She's at the party. Goes up to Michael and like tries to get it. And I was like, okay, is this set up later? And then there's the apartment scene, which is like the moment I think things started clicking for me. And then I don't think you really see her that much at all after that.
No, she's basically out at that point.
So what was the point? What was the point? Is that just setting up Vincent's character?
I'm not really sure where they were going with that. I mean, obviously her family was famous. I don't know that she was much at that point. Where was she in her career?
I don't know. Wasn't she in like Army of Darkness a couple years later? Is that her?
No. That was Beth Davids.
Not in the lead role. I thought she was in the movie. So I thought it was her because it's like, what has Bridget Fonda done? I gotta find it because it's like, I know she's in something like Army of Darkness. Where are you, Bridget?
She certainly hadn't hit the apex of her career.
She's in Army of Darkness.
Oh, wonderful. I hadn't remembered that.
And Balto. There.
The bad joke I was about to make was she certainly hadn't hit the apex of her career as Dr. Julie McElroy in the blockbuster film Monkey Bone.
Yeah, it's right there. Is that a Henry Selick movie?
I think it was.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, she's also in A Simple Plan, and I forgot she was in Jackie Brown. I think she sits on the couch the whole movie.
Lewis.
Underrated movie, everybody. Yeah. Jackie Brown.
Is A Simple Plan the one with Hannah Kendrick and...
That's a Simple Favor.
Also pretty good.
I enjoyed that movie.
Simple Plan that's the
it's
Raimi
Billy Bob,
one.
Bill Paxton, and someone else. They
band.
find a plane crashed in the forest, and there's a bunch of money.
Good job, Dickey.
I had to sneak it in there.
Shut up.
It's a good band.
Isn't that it? They find money in the plane, and they're like going to use it, and they start turning on each other. Classic, but it's really good.
Dickey would do anything just to talk about movies with you.
You realize that you know why I do that though? It's because I'm just a kid.
You're just a kid. Yeah.
Life is a nightmare. This isn't fair.
Well, I mean,
nobody cares.
He lost it all, and nothing lasts forever. So
they're all having more fun than me. I remember that needle drop from Cheaper by the Dozen when they all go to school and everyone hates them and they knock the Frappuccino out of the kid's hand and goes, "My Frappuccino!" And then they start beating the crap out of each other.
Wait. I need you to do that again.
My Frappuccino!
Hold on. One more time.
My Frappuccino! Actually, I don't think that's what it was. I just have to say it because all coffee looks the same to me because I don't drink it, but it was something like that.
Post.
Oh, I'm editing this thing.
Good luck.
This is gonna be as long as our
Oscar thing.
our
We
Pixar
officially
finale.
hit 2 hours.
To bring it back on track and the
What
grossness
track?
with Sofia Coppola, one of the changes they did make to the Coda re-edit was they significantly pared back her role in the film. Just saying.
How?
In Coda?
Yeah. I mean, obviously she's still in it.
Probably
'cause
the
she's
key
still...
scenes, but then it's one of those, they keep in scenes where they mention her to let us know what she's doing, but she's probably got like 10 minutes cut or
Yeah,
something.
she's got significantly less dialogue. You know, so-
It's got to be now in like her 40s or 50s, and it's her dad saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna cut you mostly out of the movie." In this cut, she goes, "Yeah." You wonder if
Yeah,
she's like,
that's
"Yeah,
fair.
I was, like teenager, early 20s. That was, yeah, I'm not a fan."
she gets it.
We've all seen videos of us from 10, 20 years ago. It's like,
And also today.
and we're just like, yeah, you want to cut that? Go ahead.
I feel
You wonder. Or she's proud of it. She can be proud of it. She has an Oscar and more money than me.
Ain't that the truth?
Yep.
Imagine directing your daughter in a movie where you have to ask her to make out with someone, and in the context of the movie, they are related.
That would be so... I
Aren't
couldn't
they
even
quite a
imagine.
bit older than each other too?
I don't know how old he was. I'd have to look that up real quick, but that...
We
that's
could
just-
probably figure. Well, no, I guess we.
Well, let me just
we
do
don't
some
know.
clicking.
We
Let's see.
don't know Vincent's mom, or do we?
There is. So if I've looked up the family tree a few times, I think Vincent was born in like 45 or 46, which would make the bridesmaid probably be his mom. I don't remember for sure. Or maybe the mistress later in the movie that Sonny's with. I think that's. Is that the scene when he last talks to Michael? Or is that after Michael's gone? I can't remember.
It's
somewhere in there.
10 hours blend together. At this
Yeah. Let's see. When were you born, Andy Garcia? 56. And when were you born, Sophia?
I'm gonna say
71.
I was gonna say 70 something.
So, what is that, 15-year difference?
Now, I think internal to the film, they define the age difference, and I think there it's only like 9 years or something.
I don't think that's the worst part of it. I think the incest is.
Although, to be fair, too, with that,
genuinely frowned upon.
that is sort of a modern viewpoint. Within certain cultures, at certain times, in not too distant history, that was more common. That's not a judgment one way or the
Certain
other.
parts
it
of the
just-
country, I would
Oh,
say.
you
as
know
well.
the 70s.
And also
Oh,
the
no,
entire
do,
royal
do, do,
family,
do,
you know,
do, do,
that's...
Yeah, that's true. That's very good point.
In a world where this family is very much like a
is kinda-
dynasty, you know?
It is kind of like
it's-
the royal family that way. Yeah, there's dynasties and different. Huh.
So again,
Yeah,
not a judgment. It is what it is.
And yet, the
Just
Corleones
noticing.
probably haven't killed as many people over the years.
Wait, who did you say wouldn't have killed more? The Corleones or the actual royals?
Probably the Royals. You ever heard of the Crusades?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Corleones probably not as much as the. Yeah.
Fun times.
Well, on that note, you guys, we've gone quite a bit. Anything else you want to mention about the epic Godfather?
I'm trying.
So the thing
To
about
think of
3
my-
is...
I'm seeing what I wrote.
I might as well have just picked Godfather 3 for my movie.
I really at the end of the conversation, I feel like we've really covered all. We definitely a lot of 3, but I feel like we've woven 1 and 2 a little bit more in there, a little bit more.
A little bit. A little bit.
I just think I've said it probably an hour ago. For how much people have talked about the first 2, us speaking more in the third one makes sense.
Agreed.
And especially since this feels like it was tacked on to this edit instead of it working more naturally. Because those first 2, better or worse for how it works, at least it feels more cohesive. Because then that third movie starts, as we said, and it's a huge difference. So it does feel like it was tacked on to the end of the 77 edit.
Absolutely.
So,
Any more last words? All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining on today's epic discussion on the 10-hour version of The Godfather. If you like what we did here and you want to see more, you can follow us on social media. Drew, where can they follow us?
Well, you can find these guys on the Facebook. I'm sorry, just Facebook. That's cleaner. Twitter, the Instagrams, TikTok, always hilarious. You can find the podcasts on Apple,
It's
Spotify,
catching on.
Google, YouTube, and I believe there's one more.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
That's the one we've talked about where Billy Joe Armstrong smashes guitar. She's mad. That festival.
Classic.
That happened, absolutely.
You giving me 1 minute. You get Justin Bieber 20 minutes for me. 1 minute. I'm leaving out other words.
Give Billy Joe Armstrong all the minutes.
You went to rehab after
And,
that, too. So that maybe there was more at play in that
Yeah, there might
outburst.
have been.
You want me to talk about it next week? All right. So that's it for us on The Godfather. That is, this is a special edition of my top 10 list, where this is my 11th favorite movie.
It's like basically an honorable mention.
Yeah, it's an honorable mention. Absolutely.
So we'll be back next week with my 10th favorite movie. Drew will be back again, and we are covering, so you can watch along with us, the first Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Who's ready for some Harrison Ford?
I love Harrison.
Always.
Listen.
And some rain.
Harrison
Eyeballs.
And the unicorn.
Harrison Ford, eyeballs, rain, and a unicorn. Yep, sounds like that movie to me.
And
It's a horny time.
and little people that they try to pass off as toys.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
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 Well, on that note, thanks for listening to today's very special episode of Our Favorites. Like Jake said, please tune in next time. We got more awesome content coming your way very soon. So from all of us here at Off Slate Studios, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.